Page 7. Weakness or strength. Sometimes our biggest weakness can become our biggest strength. For example, here is the story of a 10-year-old boy who decided to learn judo, despite the fact that he had lost his left arm in a devastating car accident. The boy began lessons with an old Japanese judo master. He was doing well, but couldn't understand why after 3 months of training the master had taught him only one move. "Sensei," the boy finally said, "should I not be learning more moves? This is the only move you know." "But this is the only move you will ever need to know," the sensei replied. Not quite understanding but believing in his teacher, the boy kept training. Few months later, the sensei took the boy to his first tournament. Surprising himself, the boy won his first 2 matches easily. The third match proved to be more difficult, but after some time his opponent became impatient and charged. But the boy skillfully used his one move to win the match. Still amazed by his success, the boy was now in the finals. This time his opponent was bigger, stronger, and more experienced. For a while the boy appeared to be overmatched. Concerned that he might get hurt, the referee called a timeout. He was about to stop the match when the sensei intervened. Page 8. The story Weakness or Strength continued. "No," sensei insisted. "Let him continue." Soon after the match resumed, his opponent made a critical mistake. He dropped his guard. Instantly the boy used his move to pin him. The boy had won the match and the tournament. He was the champion. On the way home, the boy and sensei reviewed every move in each and every match. The boy summoned the courage to ask what was really on his mind. "Sensei, how did I win the tournament with only one move?" "You won for 2 reasons, the sensei answered. "First, you have mastered one of the most difficult throws in all of judo. Second, the only known defense for that move for your opponent was to grab your left arm. It was not there. The left arm that he had lost was a blessing in disguise." The boy's biggest weakness was his biggest strength. Quotable quotes. We all have hidden treasures. All we need to do is bring them to the surface and use them with skill. Success is the result of consistently applying some basic principles. Failure is simply the result of making a few mistakes repeatedly. Page 9. Whatever happens, happens for good. A king had a close friend who had the habit of remarking, "Whatever happens, happens for good in every situation, positive or negative." One day the king and his friend were out on a hunting expedition. The friend had apparently done something wrong in preparing one of the guns. When the king fired it, his thumb got badly injured. The friend remarked as usual, "Whatever happens, happens for good," to which the king angrily replied, "No, this is not good," and proceeded to send the friend to jail. Next day the king was hunting in an area that he should have known to stay clear. Cannibals captured him and took him to their village. They tied his hands, stacked some wood, and bound him to the pile. As they came near to set fire to the wood, they noticed that the king was having an injured thumb. Being superstitious, they never ate anyone who was less than whole, so untying the king, they released him. As he returned home, he felt remorse for the treatment he gave to his friend, and went immediately to the jail to speak to him. "You were right. It was good that my thumb was injured," and he proceeded to tell the friend all that had just happened. "And so I'm very sorry for sending you to jail. It was bad of me to do this." "No," his friend replied. "Whatever happens, happens for the good." "What do you mean? How could it be good that I sent my friend to jail? If I had not been in jail, I would have been with you. The cannibals have left you, but they would have certainly killed me. Whatever happens, happens for the good." Page 10. Tragedy. Years ago in Scotland, the Clark family had a dream. Clark and his wife worked hard and saved. making plans for their children and themselves to travel to the United States. It had taken years, but they had finally saved enough money and had got passports and reservations for the whole family on a new liner to the United States of America. The entire family was filled with anticipation and excitement about their trip. However, 7 days before their departure, the youngest son was bitten by a dog. The doctor treated the boy's wound but hung a yellow sheet on the Clark's front door. Due to possibility of infectious disease, they were being prohibited to travel for 14 days. The family's dreams were dashed. They would not be able to make the trip to America as they had planned. The father, filled with disappointment and anger, stomped to the dock to watch the ship leave without the Clark family. The father shed tears of disappointment and cursed his son and God for their misfortune. 5 days later, the tragic news spread throughout Scotland. The mighty Titanic had sunk. The unsinkable ship had sunk, taking hundreds of lives with it. The Clark family was to be on that ship, but because the son was bitten by a dog, they were left behind in Scotland. When Mr. Clark heard the news, he hugged his son and thanked God for saving the family. He thanked God for turning what he had felt was a tragedy into a blessing. Page 11. Quotable quotes. Although we may not always understand, all things happen for a reason. Next time our morning seems to be going wrong and the children are slow getting dressed and we can't seem to find the car keys and hit every traffic light, let us not get mad or frustrated, but praise God instead, because not getting what we want is sometimes a wonderful stroke of luck. Whatever has happened, happened for the good. Whatever is happening, it is for the good. Whatever will happen, it will be for our good. God has planned everything for everyone, so let us remain cool and calm in every situation. It is very easy to say, it is easy to write. However, we know it is very difficult to keep mental balance in a difficult situation. But unless we do so, we will not be able to think and do what is in the best interest for us and everyone. The period of greatest gain in knowledge and experience is the most difficult period in one's life. Page 12. Problem. A man feared his wife wasn't hearing as well as she used to, and he thought she might need a hearing aid. Not quite sure how to approach her, he called the family doctor to discuss the problem. The doctor told him there is a simple informal test the husband could perform to give the doctor a better idea about her hearing loss. Here's what you do, said the doctor. Stand about 40 feet away from her and in a normal conversational speaking tone see if she hears you. If not, go to 30 feet, then 20 feet, and so on until you get a response. That evening, when the wife was in the kitchen cooking dinner, he says to himself, I'm about 40 feet away, let us see what happens. Then in a normal tone he asks, Honey, what's for dinner? No response. So the husband moves closer to the kitchen, about 30 feet from his wife, and repeats, Honey, what's for dinner? Still no response. Next he moves into the dining room, where he is about 20 feet from his wife, and asks, Honey, what's for dinner? Again he gets no response. He walks up to the kitchen door about 10 feet away. Honey, what's for dinner? Again there is no response. So he walks right up behind her. Honey, what's for dinner? James, for the 5th time, I repeat, it's pizza. The problem may not be with the other person as we think. It could be very much with us. Page 13. Solution. One fine day, a bus driver started the bus and drove off along the route. There was no problem for the first few stops. A few people got on and off the bus and things went smoothly. However, at the next stop, a huge guy got on, 6 feet 8 inches tall, looked like a wrestler. glared at the driver and said, "Big John doesn't pay," and sat down at the back. Did we mention that the driver was 5'3", thin and basically weak? Well, he was. Naturally, he didn't argue with Big John, but he wasn't happy about it. The next day, the same thing happened. Big John got on again, made a show of refusing to pay, and sat down. And the next day, and the one after that, and so forth. This irritated the bus driver, who started losing sleep over the way Big John was taking advantage of him. Finally, he could stand it no longer. In order to retaliate, he signed up for bodybuilding courses, karate, judo, and all that good stuff. By the end of the summer, he had become quite strong. What's more important, he felt really good about himself. So on the next Monday, when Big John once again got on the bus and said, "Big John doesn't pay," and the driver stood up, glared back, and screamed, "And why not?" With a surprised look on his face, Big John replied, "Big John has a bus pass." Let's be sure there is a problem in the first place before working hard to resolve one. The problem we see may not be a problem at all. The problem most of the time is our attitude towards the problem. Page 14, Faith. Professor of Philosophy was speaking to his class on the problem between science and existence of God the Almighty. He asked one of his new students to stand and, "Professor, so you believe in God?" Student, "Absolutely, sir." Professor, "Is God good?" Student, "Sure." Professor, "Is God all-powerful?" Student, "Yes." Professor, "My brother died of cancer even though he prayed to God to heal him. Most of us would attempt to help others who are ill. But is this God good then? Student is silent. Professor, "Tell me, son, is there evil in this world?" "Yes, evil is everywhere, isn't it?" said the professor. "And God did make everything. Is it correct?" "Yes. So who created evils?" asked the professor. Student doesn't answer. Professor, "Is there sickness, immorality, hatred, ugliness? All these terrible things exist in the world, don't they?" "Yes, sir," said the student. "So who created them?" asked the professor. The student has no answer.